Hi, I'm the Moss Man, and in today's video I'm going to be taking this keyboard right here, which is the keyboard I've been using for quite some time. It cost me like $2 or something. And we're going to be building this mechanical keyboard. And also update for the PC, I have a second monitor now, woohoo! I'm going to go over my process of making this keyboard. I'm going to be comparing it to other keyboards, including the one I just had. And I'm going to do my best to show you guys, even though a lot of it is about feel, and you can't really feel through the screen, but I'm going to be doing my best to show you guys the differences between the keyboards that I have access to. And for anyone who doesn't understand how mechanical or normal keyboards work, I will be briefly explaining that. And I'd like to add thank you to everyone who voted, all 10 of you who voted on the poll so far. I will be releasing a specific how to grow video hopefully sometime in March. I know that seems like a ways away, but unfortunately it takes me a little bit of time to produce these videos with school and work and everything. Now this keyboard here is obviously the one I've had already. Briefly to cover kind of keyboard layouts, because when you're customizing keyboards, when you're making a mechanical keyboard, people like to play around with how many keys you have, where they're positioned, that kind of thing. This keyboard right here is pretty close to a full layout, which would be 100%. The navigation cluster, which is those page up, page down, menu end, all those buttons, and the arrow keys have been kind of squished in, but other than that, it's pretty close to a full layout. This is a membrane keyboard, and I'll explain what that means later in this video. Alright, this keyboard here, the layout is a 60%, which means the function keys are gone, the navigation cluster, those are the home, page up, page down arrow keys, are gone, and the number pad on the side is also gone. All of those can be accessed through the function key and a combination of keys, and it's the most compact design I have available to me. The switches in this are Gateron optical clear, and if you don't know what that means, basically it means the thing that actually registers your input is that. Optical mechanical switches detect you pressing down by cutting off a beam of light, which is why they're optical. Other mechanical keyboards have actual contacts. This keyboard here is the one I have selected for working on this design. The switches in it are the Gateron blue switches, which are clicky switches, which means there's a little piece in there that once the switch goes past a certain point, it makes a click. It can be very satisfying, but over time I've learned that it becomes very annoying. The layout is a 75% layout, which is one of the in-betweens from like a 10 keyless, and in between it's not quite a 60%, but still has all those wonderful function keys up top and the navigation cluster squished in the side with the arrow keys. You don't need it, but I like to have my function keys. That's why I went with the 75% layout. Now what I'm doing is I'm just going to quickly use a keycap puller, which is this little tool here, and remove all of the keycaps from this current board, because I will be switching them out for a set of keycaps I like better. Now that all the keycaps are gone, you can kind of see like the inner workings, almost, of the mechanical keyboard. Here are all the switches. Each blue thing is a switch or a button that you can push in and it'll click. Yeah, it's a physical mechanism. These keyboards are hot swappable. Both of the mechanical keyboards I have are hot swappable, which means that you can pull these switches right out with a switch puller. In other designs, they're soldered onto the PCB, so that's like the computer part, kind of the internal wiring, and I don't really want to be desoldering and resoldering switches for forever, and I'm just kind of playing around with things, so it's nice to have what's called hot swappable switches, which means you just pull them right out and you can put anything of the same or similar design right back in and it'll work perfectly. So these are the exposed switches. These are the things that register your input. And the three here, the one with the blue switch is the Gateron blue, that's the clicky switch. The one that is white is the Gateron clear, is an optical switch. And the green one is the ACO matcha green switch. The matcha green is a linear switch. I believe the clear is a linear switch as well. And now, in much the same way that I pulled off all the keycaps, I now have to pull out all of the switches. Fortunately, like I said before, I don't have to desolder the board and then pull them out. Thankfully, this is a little bit easier than it could potentially be. Now, before we put the new switches in, we're going to take a look and figure out how these membrane standard keyboards work the old-fashioned way, by pulling it apart and looking at it. Okay, now I'm going to be honest, this part actually surprised me a little bit. What I was expecting was what you see in most membrane keyboards, which is a solid sheet of like silicone or something like that all of these little nubs are attached to. But when I opened it up and tipped it over to look inside, it was just a pile of these things. I guess it's significantly cheaper to do it this way. Okay, so once we open it up, we can actually see the, I guess you would call it circuit board. It's not exactly a board, instead it's a few sheets of thin plastic with traces in it that sends signals when there's pressure applied to those little white dots on them. Okay, so now what's going on here is I have the USB end plugged into my computer, and I am pressing the small circuit board into the contacts on the circuit board sheet, and I have Word open with the font all the way, like font big, so you can see when I type. It doesn't work 100% of the time because I'm not holding it perfectly in place, but if I was, this is how it would work. And now for cleanup. I was hoping I could actually use this keyboard again as like maybe a backup or something. Put it aside somewhere for later, I guess. I'm not gonna throw it out. Back to some maybe more glamorous shots. Here I have the ACO matcha green switches. I had to buy 2 because they come in sets of 45 and I have 84 keys on this keyboard. I also am showing off the matcha keycaps. Now this keycap set is pretty popular if you want to find a green keycap set. There's a whole bunch of variations on it and I'm sure it's not too hard to find. That is what I'm using in my new keyboard setup. Okay, so all the keycaps are in, and you may be wondering, or it may be really bugging you, why is there no escape key? That's the top key at the top left. The reason for that is I have a very special key that I purchased specifically for my escape key. That's right, it's a moss keycap made by Zen Keycaps. Found them on Etsy. It was not cheap, I tell you what, but I think it's an awesome addition to my keyboard. And there we go, that is the finished keyboard. Now, as I have done with all the other keyboards, it's time for a sound test. Now, you may prefer the sound of one of the other keyboards, but to me this is the best sounding keyboard of the bunch. And if you enjoy the other ones, then there you go. Those are some switches that you can consider getting yourself. Alright, thank you for watching. Hopefully that was at least a little bit informative. Thank you, Dylan and Elijah, for providing the music. And I'll see you in the next one.